Hello, everybody. Adam Parks here with another episode of Receivables Roundtable. Today, I'm here with my good friend, Mr. Jon Daane with TEC Services Group, which is an organization that does a little bit of everything across this space from a technology perspective. But I'll let Jon explain that a little bit better than I possibly can. But to kick it off, Jon, for anybody who hasn't been as lucky as me to get to know you through the years, can you tell everyone a little bit about yourself and how you got to the seat that you're in today?
Yeah, thanks, Adam. So I started in this industry about 17 years ago with a little software company called Columbia Ultimate, right before they got acquired by Ontario Systems back in the day. I had the pleasure of working in both the private sector and public sector, selling solutions across the board, whether that was software technology or services from Columbia. And then quickly learned that I wanted to expand my knowledge base. So I left the industry for about 4 years and ended up coming back to TEC as VP of Sales here. Had the pleasure of kind of expanding on our already known service offerings on the professional services side. And now we're expanding into solutions, which I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more about coming up.
I definitely want to talk a little bit more about that because as I got to know TEC through the years, it was always about solving problems, right? It was, I need to connect this system to this system, and you guys had the expertise of both systems to be able to create those bridges for me. But now you guys have moved into like this whole new business model. So let's talk a little bit about TEC Solutions and kind of how that has evolved from your TEC Services Group offerings.
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting journey. As you mentioned, TEC was always known for its service offerings around technology expertise, knowing how to plug fax into a dialer or having some sort of integrated system or data conversions and so on. This is really the extension of that service offering. So our clients came to us over the years begging for recommendations, for an objective look at the industry and what we might be able to put in front of them that made sense for their company. Mm-hmm. So TEC Solutions was born actually earlier last year, I guess, 2023, officially. And we've been able to partner with about 18 companies now selling their technology with them. Mm-hmm. And really placing, it goes beyond that because now we can partner up the service offering along with the technology that makes sense, and we can bring it to the table. And so when we get approached now as a company and we start talking, and our technicians of highly skilled engineers and consultants actually get talking to their clients, they can say, well, yeah, I know about 4 companies that you should take a look at in that space. We've had experience with them. We know they work together with this technology and that, mm-hmm. and we can plug those together. And so it's really been fun. It's an extension of what we've already done for years, for about 28 years. And we're excited to keep it going.
So it's been an interesting opportunity to get to work with you and to kind of watch this evolution, because I feel like it fills a gap that the industry ultimately has, right? And that's the consultants that can come in and kind of provide a broader perspective, because for those that are running a collection agency or a debt buyer, you're so bogged down in the day-to-day that when it's time to update your application stack, importing some knowledge, I think is a good way to go in terms of trying to understand what's in front of you. And as long as you as an organizational leader are driving the vision of where you're trying to go, I think this type of service kind of fills in those gaps to help you actually be able to get there, because there's a lot of disparate systems and we always end up managing all of these different technology platforms separately. But with your expertise on kind of bringing things together, it feels like that's a big part of that solutions-based selling that you guys have created through the years.
Yeah, it's similar to building a house or renovating a home where you can certainly go out and hire a plumber, or you can hire an electrician to come in and do a specific task. Mm-hmm. But the reality of it is, how does all that go together in a project? How do you coordinate it? Which is why people oftentimes hire a general contractor or go to Angie's List or some service like that for recommendations, who they've worked with, how they work together, if they've worked with another company before. And so if I had to draw a direct parallel, I would say TC is kind of creating that Angie's List of the collections industry, where we're now truly being a consultant / provider of services and software alongside our partners. And so it's been a fun journey working with you too, as we've kind of gotten to know you and been working on the marketing side.
So it also feels like you guys have kind of moved you go beyond kind of solutioning the problem, right? So a customer comes to you, they talk about what their problems actually are. Like, here's what I'm trying to accomplish. Here's where I'm trying to go. But you guys aren't just being like, oh, go look at those 3 or 4 pieces of technology. You're leading them through that process. But are you guys providing that implementation support when they actually go to execute?
It's a good question. We certainly can. We've done that. We can bleed that over into our professional services team, where they can certainly perform the work. We do try very hard to keep the technology separate from the rest of the professional services, only so that we stay a truly agnostic consulting firm as a company. But it goes to my core philosophy in sales, that sales is no longer about product knowledge or knowing a specific technology, or maybe how, buyers come to the table already informed on what technology can and can't do for them. They usually have a short list already in their mind of where they're looking. So the role of the selling person is really to be a kind of an empathetic listener and putting the pieces together with real life problems. So our team we've been really blessed with some of the best sellers in the industry joining our team, but they are really good at, what is the core business challenge? What happens if you do nothing? Those kind of questions are really important questions to ask and understand. And as we start then piecing the pieces together like a jigsaw puzzle, whether that starts with a corner piece like a collection platform, I think we've talked about before, or whether it be starting with a piece of data or a strategy to make something happen, or even just purchasing a company and moving forward. So we can put all those pieces together, help them through that journey, and then put a plan in place that makes sense for implementation.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, from a solutionings perspective, how have you guys gone about kind of extracting the needs from the client? I've always found, from a consulting standpoint, that getting the client to talk about what they actually need and to try to understand their vision of their own organization. Any tips for trying to understand, trying to coax them, right, to actually talk about their problems? I guess where I'm trying to get to, John, is that balance between having to come in and inject knowledge versus extracting kind of understanding of the existing situation.
Yeah, it's a fantastic question. I wish I had the silver bullet when it comes to asking the right questions at the right times. I'm certainly not skilled enough nor think highly enough of myself to be able to say that I know what to tell you there. The reality of it is, though, that, and we've talked about this before, that a lot of times our clients struggle with knowing what their own vision is, even when they engage on a journey to go buy something. We're starting to ask questions like, where do you want to be in 10 years? Do you see yourself in business in 10 years? If so, what is it going to take to elevate your business to get to the point where you can stay in this competitive market and be aggressive? So I think from our perspective, it is about, drawing that out. One tip I'll give anybody who's listening is the fact that sales is not a one-way discussion. It's not a person asking questions. It's not me asking you, Adam, what's your burning most problem in the world? It's about providing enough input and enough knowledge so you trust me enough to just deliver your thoughts. And then it's my job to listen to those thoughts, organize them in a way, represent them to you that may make sense, and then, of course, offer you a solution. So in a true sales dialogue, in my opinion, it goes back and forth, a little bit of knowledge feeding, a lot of listening, and then organizing and regurgitating what's most important out of that.
So it feels like the technology changes are coming rapidly now, and it feels like we're going to see it even more rapidly. If you go back and you look at the TransUnion Datos report, one of the interesting statistics that I saw in that report from TransUnion was that from a user perspective, from an artificial intelligence perspective, they were saying that 11% of organizations are actually using AI, and another 40% are saying that's where they're want to move. Are you starting to actually see that migration towards that type of technology, or are organizations more focused on their infrastructure right now to even enable that type of technology to be used in the future?
Oh, that's a fantastic question. I think just like we saw back in the 80s and 90s, right? Technology is starting to pick up speed at an even faster rate. And today, the rate of change is the slope of that progression is more massive than it's ever been before, because you have technologies like generative AI and large language models that are creeping into our reporting solutions and our compliance solutions and our automation and so on. I think one of the downfalls we have, or one of the pitfalls, I should say, is the use of the word AI needs to be clarified. There are lots of different types of artificial intelligence, and when we use it broadly, it can distract the message. My goal is to educate the market and say, look, artificial intelligence is a technology. It's a tool that can be leveraged for parts of your business and maybe not others, or maybe you're not ready to use it in other parts of your business. So a good example of it, there's software out there that leverages large language models and pre-built kind of learning algorithms to generate compliance automation. We can help with some of that by putting in voice analytics and recording and using that from a compliance standpoint. We also represent a company that works with AI. They've integrated GPT-4. They'll work on GPT-5 in the reporting aspects of what they do. So those pieces are ways you can dive into AI or dive into new tech very easily without disrupting a lot of process. But leveraging artificial intelligence to interact with consumers, as an example, may be a bit too much at this point. May not be, depends on your company. But at this point, we need to be very cautious of how we step into it. It is our job, and one thing I think we've been pretty blessed with is we're fairly on top of what's available today and where the market is headed from a collection platform standpoint, from a omni-channel and consumer engagement solutions, right? There's all sorts of technology that's coming up that's on the forefront. It's not quite out yet, but it's coming very quickly, and we want to be a part of that. My only caution is just be careful how you leverage the word artificial intelligence, because there's nothing artificial about my team's intelligence. So I would just be careful how we just broadly scope it out.
I agree wholeheartedly. I actually did a roundtable, I want to say it was last year, with Jeff Schaefer from Unifund, who's also a professor of artificial intelligence. So if anybody's still confused about the language around artificial intelligence, I'll link that one in the description below, because I do think it's an important factor. I mean, it's definitely something, even from a marketing standpoint, that we've started to experiment with and test and try, right? But with that comes experimenting, testing, and trying. It's not just something I can roll out and be like, oh, now we're going to use AI for X, Y, and Z. It's something that has required a little bit of time, bringing our platforms together, and then making sure that our underlying technology was capable of actually deploying and managing it. Because we do still have to, we're still responsible for what happens within our artificial intelligence responses. And if we're not vigilant in how we're managing it, it can cause some additional problems. But I figured this was something that you guys were coming across pretty frequently as the bridge between multiple technology solutions. And so I'm not aware of a whole lot of systems of record that are really leveraging that artificial intelligence internally, but it is the connection of multiple systems, like taking a Latitude and plugging it into like a success KPI or another tool set, right? And creating that bridge between systems, which is kind of feels like that's the world that you guys live in.
Yeah, I mean, I equate it to a couple comments on that. I equate it to when Alexa, Amazon's Alexa first came out, or Google Home, right? Some of the technology that was voice recognition devices, and everybody was very excited about what it could possibly do for them. And they were very willing to welcome it into their household and have this device that is constantly listening to everything you're doing and making decisions and recommendations based on things that are going on. It took some time to realize the skepticism of, well, should we be going down that route? Is that something that I want for my household? Do I want my recorded conversations on the web available to a large corporation? Or maybe I do. Personally, I have several Alexa devices in my house because
I'm worried you're about to set it up in your office.
We use them as a tool within the household for talking to our kids, all the way to opening the garage door. The other example I wanted to throw out there is there are technologies that were originally built for the use of artificial intelligence. And that artificial intelligence was incorporated at the core level to automate process, whether those be RPAs or just automated process through machine learning or through algorithms. So it's certainly not here to dispute that there are collection platforms that were originally designed to be some form of AI. That is not generative AI, which is what people think of when they think of artificial intelligence. And so we have to be, again,
I struggle to put RPA in the same bucket as artificial
you
intelligence
just
and
can't.
machine
It's
learning.
totally different technology. You've got, automation, and then you have generation of thoughts. And so, I'd be interested to listen to your webinar on that as well.
Personally, I thought that was a good one because it was a professor coming in trying to explain it, not necessarily just from industry terms, but talking about the challenges and what the underlying technology really means. I mean, he's the guy who got me to run Llama on my local machine here so that I could start experimenting with generative AI and large language models without necessarily dumping my information onto the web and being able to do it within a controlled and small environment. But it does take a pretty significant amount of computing power to run those kinds of models. But I feel like I've learned a lot through it.
Yeah, that's the other piece that I think you mentioned is a lot of companies maybe don't have the infrastructure or the technology to support engaging in new technology trends in their company. And so maybe the starting point, this is again where TEC Solutions was really founded, was this idea of maybe today is not the day. Maybe next year is the year we look at new technology and putting in, innovative tech like Cedric and Latitude and some of the technology that we've seen out there. Perhaps maybe today it's focused on infrastructure or services that get you to a point where you can actually run optimally. So that's a good point as well.
I think you bring up a good point there. It is all about that infrastructure, right? We can't just go turning on the latest and greatest technology if we haven't upgraded our environment in the last 20 years, right? We need to make sure that we're building a supporting foundation for it. It's like worrying about what color the front door is going to be when you haven't poured the concrete for the foundation of the home, right? Going back to your home analogy. And for me, it's all about the concrete. And whenever I'm starting a technology development project or I'm looking at an environment, I want to make sure that I'm not pouring multiple foundations next to each other and then trying to build one home on it, because in home terms, it'll never settle correctly, right? You're always going to have these platforms settle at different things and create cracks in your walls. So I think getting that right underlying infrastructure is an integral part of being able to leverage new technology. And it sounds like that's kind of the core of where you guys are starting, is trying to get people to understand that, like, sometimes walking is the right speed at which to get to your destination versus a full sprint. Not that I want to stop the running group at the RMAI conference or anything like that. Clearly that's when you like to move fast, but I do love that you guys are looking at kind of this incremental change and helping organizations to prepare to implement new technology versus just throwing new technology at them and hoping for the best.
Well, and that was one of the things I think you mentioned that feels like a little bit of a gap in the industry or a gap in our technology, is that, look, let's not beat around the bush. Software companies are designed to sell their software in the marketplace, and they want everybody to move as fast as possible to get onto that technology. Customers are naturally going to be lagging in wanting to invest in new technology because there's a cost differential, there's a risk to the business, and so on. I think where we're coming at, just from a broad solution-based selling approach in general, the right thing to do is to be really, truly an understanding person and say, look, Adam, I know where you want to get to. I know where you want to be in 8 years. You've expressed very clearly where you want to get to. I know that this technology over here wants to sell you their technology, their platform, but let's not rush into it. Let's not put you at risk. Let's not create undue cost that doesn't make sense today. And then for the companies that are ready to sprint, we can certainly keep up. But it is a balancing act, and it's a discussion that has to have. It just has to be had. So that's why we're there.
So if there was one piece of advice that you would give to an organization that's looking around their shop right now and saying, yeah, it's time for an upgrade, what would you consider to be that first primary step that they should be taking?
It's a great question. I ask myself that every day. I was at an ACA panel and that question came up. And I think what came out of that was simply that agencies and companies are afraid of taking that next step. They don't understand it and they don't want to get there. So my advice would be, remove the fear from yourself and be open to having conversations about what you could do, what the possibilities look like. Nobody is saying you have to open your checkbook and write a check today. I think I just predated myself, but that's okay. Nobody always saying send me an invoice and I'll pay it through an automated process. But the reality of it is, if we can open ourselves up to listening to industry experts, to great content providers like yourself and others that offer a truly objective kind of look at what can be done, that's a great first step.
Mm-hmm.
Self-education. The next step then, of course, is to remove all of the fear and the ambiguity within your own organization. So set a plan, have a strategy, create a vision, and then find a way to express that vision to those that you want to engage with.
Well, that sounds like great first steps for any organization that is looking to kind of make some changes from a technology perspective. Jon, I can't thank you enough for coming on and having a chat with me today. I know I get a chance to chat with you at the conferences and at random times throughout the year, but you know how much I love this type of topic and really helping organizations to grow their technology. And I think you guys have done a really fantastic job of creating an environment of success where organizations can start to learn about and deploy new technology in the right way, right? There's always risks, but I feel like your procedure and process and your team have done a great job with it.
We are absolutely doing our best, and we can't thank you enough for getting the word out and helping organizations know what's available to them from a service standpoint. But always open to suggestions and comments, questions, concerns. I'm here for you.
Well, speaking of which, for those of you that are watching today, if you have additional questions you'd like to ask Jon and myself, you can leave those in the comments on LinkedIn and YouTube, and we'll be responding to those. If you have additional topics you'd like to see us cover, you can leave those in the comments below as well. And hopefully I can get Jon to come back at least one more time to help me continue creating great content for a great industry. But until next time, Jon, thank you so much. I can't thank you enough for coming on with me today.
Thanks, Adam.
And for those of you that are watching, we'll see you again soon. Thanks, everybody.